Well, I'm on the farm today, and we cut this field right here earlier. This is second cutting hay, and I thought while I got my Krone hooked up to the John Deere, I would do a little review on it and go over some of the features and things like that. And if you're new to the channel and you haven't seen our videos, this is a John Deere 5055D. It's about 50 PTO horsepower. And you might be thinking, what am I doing running a disc mower conditioner on this tractor? And so we have a bigger tractor. It's a Massey Ferguson 1105. It's in for some repairs. And in second cutting, it's not unusual for us to run this Krone on the John Deere in second cutting hay, and it does fine. I wouldn't want any more on it. I probably would prefer a little bit less, but delivers the mail. My John Deere doesn't bog down, it doesn't heat up. You can look at some other videos I've got on the channel and kind of see for yourself. So when I bought this Krone, I was in the market for a John Deere 625, and the dealer had this thing on their lot, and they'd given me a quote, and during the summer, and then I went back and it was gone. About a month or so later, it was gone, and later on, probably about a year and a half, I kind of got serious about buying a disc mower conditioner, and at that time all I had was the John Deere, and then I had my International 756 gasser. And so I thought, well, my International will run a disc mower conditioner, and so I wanted to buy one. And the reason was not that my Heston 1110 sickle mower conditioner wouldn't deliver the mail. The Heston is a 7-foot. This is a 9-foot cut, essentially a 9-foot cut. But, you know, if there's moisture, if it's late in the evening, if it's after dark, you know, I have a full-time day job. So being able to come up here and be on the farm and cut when my schedule permits, really at any hour, is advantageous. And so I wanted to upgrade, and I had in mind a John Deere 625, an 8-foot cutter with impeller tines. We don't really grow any legumes up here, and but I went to the dealer in like December, and tried to get him to get me a 625. They checked around with some other dealers that had some. They were kind of in short supply at that time. And so the dealers that they were going to buy from or trade from, other John Deere dealers, they wanted a whole lot more money than what a 625 would typically sell for. Well, the dealership where this Krone was, the reason it disappeared out of sight was because, and this is what I'm told, apparently John Deere came by, and the regional rep or whoever, and they saw this Krone sitting out with the other John Deere haying equipment, and they pointed out to the dealer that you know, you're a John Deere dealer, and John Deere makes a mower conditioner, and so why is the Krone sitting out here with the John Deeres? Because, you know, we don't make a hay rake, so we don't really have a lot of heartburn with you having Krone hay rakes out here and Krone tedders, because we really don't make a John Deere branded tedder and rake. But a mower conditioner, that's a little different. And if you like being a John Deere dealer, my advice is to put this thing on the back lot somewhere out of sight. And they did. And so it's set over a hill in a back lot and it got moved a couple times, but sometimes it was in behind a building. You really couldn't see it unless you were looking for it, and it was way off the area where they normally sell equipment. But I would go in there and I would walk around, like after they would close on Saturday or maybe on a Sunday, and I would look at this thing, and I took pictures of it, and I read about it, and I read about Krone. I asked a lot of questions on the internet, and so I just kind of got to know this mower, even though I didn't own it, and kind of had that in my hip pocket when I was looking at the John Deere 625. And so I got to the dealership, and I said, you know, I want the 625, and they said, well, it's going to cost this much, which was really high. And I knew what the quote was like a year and a half early on this one was, and I asked the sales guy, I said, well, you got a Krone mower conditioner sitting down there in the back. You know, what's the best you can do on that? And I was prepared to write a check. There wasn't any financing on this mower. I had the money ready to go, and so it was a straight out cash deal. And so he scratched around, and he said, I can do this. And I'm not going to say how much I paid, but it wasn't a whole lot more than a New Holland 488. And probably at that time $2,000 or $3,000 more than New Holland 488 sickle mower conditioner, and the price was like $5,000 less than what they had quoted me like a year and a half earlier in the middle of the summer. So I said, I'll take it. And I said, I want a few options. I said, I want the high skid shoes, which you can see down there. There's one there and one there. We were trying to find the part numbers on it, and we weren't real sure. And so we walked down over the hill and looked at the mower. For some reason, we needed to go look at it. And lo and behold, the skid shoes were on it. So that was part of the price. I didn't have to pay any extra for those. And I think that, and I think the other option I wanted were the wheel weights. So this mower can get a little bit tipsy on the side of a hill, being that it's mounted with basically a swivel right down there, a pivot, and so you can get weights to go into the wheels to help prevent that from happening. And so again, looking at the mower, we figured out it's already got them, and they're already on the machine. And as I recall, the third thing I wanted was the kit where it spreads the grass. It has these fins, and I don't recall if this whole, it might have been this whole plate and these fins were the option, wide and thin spreading kit. Pretty sure that's the way it was. That was already on the machine, so I felt pretty good about that. And so I wrote him a check, and wasn't long. Within just a little bit, they delivered it, and we handed it on the farm. So, having said all that, let me talk about some of the features on this Krone. And this is a model 2801 CV. And first of all, this Krone mounts on your lower lift arms, and that was important if I was going to run it on this John Deere, because there's a limit on how much vertical drawbar load you can put on this tractor. And even the 625 John Deere was getting up near the limit for this tractor. So by putting it on the lift arms, it took that completely out of play and made it suitable to work with this John Deere if I needed to, and it turns out I do use it. It's got a gear head, a swivel gear head, and you can make 90-degree turns. Even you can exceed 90 degrees. The limit is, are you going to run into this with the rear tire, like on my big Massey, or on this little John Deere? Since the tire sets in from the end of the lift arm, you can turn it tight enough that this lift arm and this mast can turn right into the side of this Krone. I've never done it, knock on wood, I hope I never do. And the whole time, when you're in the 90-degree turn, that PTO shaft is straight. And so there's no CV joints or anything like that. And then, so it's got this, I only have one set of remotes on here, but it takes two sets of remotes. One to move it in and out, and one to lift it up and down. And so what I'll do when I need to pull it in on this tractor, I just take that lift up and down remote off, put these two in, and put it in position, or and then do whatever I need to do. One of these days we're going to add another set of remotes to this tractor, and that'll kind of solve that problem. So the Krone has a unique suspension system. So it's got these parallel bars that kind of keep the head parallel to the ground, and it's got these springs right here. And so this Krone it's not pushing the cutter head, it's pulling it along. And so when you hit a bump, it moves up out of the way. It moves up. It doesn't plow into something like a cutter bar that might be being pushed. And you can adjust the tension on these springs, which I have done. And you can make it as heavy or as light as you want on the on the ground. And I have it pretty light here because we have rocks and a lot of lumps in our fields and things like that. So I really don't put it on the ground with a heavy weight on it. So I'm sure I'll miss something while I'm talking, but just ask in the comments, and if I see it, I'll try to answer your question. This mower is available in 1000 or 540 PTO. Typically when you see the beige gearbox, that means it's 540, and that's what this one is. And you can adjust this cylinder attachment point right here. It really needs to be here for this mower, for both of my tractors that I run this thing on. This is the way it came. I just never did change it. What that does, that makes the edge of the cutter bar ride closer or far away from your wheels. And once you get this thing lifted up, this jack folds up, and it folds up out this way, and this pins it in the down position and the up position. There's a lot of grease zerks on this machine, which I like. The one place that is pretty maintenance free on this mower is the cutter bar. It's a welded cutter bar, and it's got great big spur gears in it. And these turtles, they spin opposite of each other. They don't all spin in the same direction. The John Deere 625, and I think their other 625, I forget the numbers now, it's been so long, but they typically all spin towards the center. And so this one, that when the grass comes off this cutter bar, it's evenly distributed across the hood of the conditioner tines. One thing I liked about this mower is it's so heavy. It's such a heavy duty machine. Everything on it, everything about it is just massive. When you look at these frames right here, this business, it comes down to this wheel, and of course the wheel is much bigger than the 625 was. It's just massive. I mean, this has got to be over an inch thick, and so kind of crawl down in here underneath of it. So this mower has a tread plate conditioning hood, and you can adjust that to how close it is to the tips of the tines. I've read and heard some people say that, you know, they'll adjust it until the tines touch and then they'll back it off. I have mine set where the tines are about an inch off the hood, and I get outstanding conditioning. We can mow, and we can mow one day and then bale on the third day. Dry hay, grass hay, on you know, for heavy first cutting. And so I feel like there's plenty of scrubbing action going on against the hay and the conditioning hood, but yet I don't have it choked down so tight that it can't get the hay off of the hood. Now the Krone has hook tine impellers, and these are very aggressive. And these impellers they're not free swinging from one side of this roll to the other. There's a stop. So when this thing is up to speed, the centrifugal force of this thing running, these things come up to a certain position, and that's the height with respect to this hood. Now obviously they can go backwards if the load is too heavy, but just the mass of these things swinging, you know, they'll come right up to here, and so they don't just flop around. When they come up to a working position, which is good. And when I first bought this thing, and I turned the PTO off, I thought I'd lost a gear or something, because all of these tines drop back to position when the RPM slowed enough. So again, here's the skid shoes, and I've got them set where I have a couple of inches on top of the cutter, you know, picking the cutter bar up a couple of inches. I think they're like 25 millimeters, which is like an inch. So I get about a 4 to 5 inch cut, depending on where I've got my cutter bar pitched, which is of course adjustable. And these things are supposedly lubed for life. And I talked to a Krone rep, and he said the spur gears, the bearings inside the cutter bar, they're on, they have sealed bearings, and so the oil in there is really not to service the, you know, to lube the bearings. It's just to keep the gears lubed up. And so there's a place, there's a nut, a bolt right in here, a filler cap, if you want to call it, kind of like on an oil pan, where you can level this thing up and you can check the fluid. And I check it, and I'll probably replace it too at some point. I don't know if I like the lube for life idea. I kind of like to, you know, even gear oil, I like to change it. Now, one thing about these skids is they're set inboard a little bit. When I bought this thing, they were sitting over on the outboard side, and that's not the way they were supposed to be. So I had to move them in, and I got with Krone. They had some different length fasteners I needed to use. I'm not sure why the dealer set it up the way they did, and I'm assuming the dealer did it. But in a lot of ways, having this these skid sheaves inboard like this, you're less likely to high center the middle of the cutter bar, and it just works great. The blades on this thing, they're quick change. That was one thing I liked over the John Deere. And you can flip the blades over, but there's a lever you can pull down. And you really do this from the front. And so you can change the blades on this thing in a matter of minutes if you choose to do so. Now, one thing about this cutter bar, it's all gear driven, and it's driven, you know, you see a lot of cutter bars, the turtle, that turtle over there, if you can see it, the last turtle right there, or the innermost turtle, a lot of them have a shaft going straight up into a gearbox. And that's not the way Krone does it. They have a gearbox on the outside, which I'll show you here in just a little bit. And that gearbox comes down, and it drives, there's a spur gear right here that reaches up and drives the spur gear under that, and then subsequently all these turtles going all the way down, and that hat on the very end. And so you don't get hay hanging up and wrapped around a shaft like you do on some cutter bars. And also, usually the machines that have the shaft going vertically off of that turtle, there's no shear protection on that. On the Krone, the shear protection is on every single turtle, even the ones with the hats. Now, when the Krone, if you hit an obstacle with the Krone, the shear protection are two roll pins, one inside the other. And when those roll pins shear, this is unique with the Krone, this turtle spins up about that far out of the way of the two neighboring turtles. So a lot of times with some of the other makes of mower conditioners, you know, when you lose a turtle, when you shear, you know, one of these turtles, sometimes what happens is this one and this one hit this one, and then they do damage here and here, and sometimes it can cascade on down the bar. So these things shear, and they spin up out of the way, and it's a pretty unique design. And the you know, the roll pins are cheap. They just, you know, probably or a couple bucks for that much. So this is the gearbox, and there's no belts on this mower conditioner. And so to change speeds, let's say you are going to do some legumes, and I know there's great debates on impeller conditioners and legumes, but let's say that's what you wanted to do. You can take that little wing nut off, and this thing will spin 180 degrees, and that'll change the gearing in here such that these impellers, instead of going 900 RPMs, it'll slow them down to 600. It makes it a little more gentle on your crop. And there's a slip clutch in here. It's right behind this panel is an access, and they call it venting. You can vent this slip clutch, which all that means is you just make sure it's not seized up at the beginning of the year, and that's a pretty easy thing to do. So we try to stay on top of that. And drive shafts coming out through here. There's no CV constant velocity PTO shafts that I'm aware of on this Krone. Couple things that I don't care for is, and I don't like this on any PTO driven implement. All these shrouds right here, they just make it a real pain to grease everything, and but nonetheless we deal with them and keep everything greased. There's a grease zerk down inside here. You can there's a hole, I think it's on the other side, where you can reach it. Typically what I do is I just take this thing off and in the spring, and there's usually some hay up in there, and I'll take that off and kind of clean everything up. The mower came with lights and cables you plug in there and then plug into your tractor, I guess, if you're going to be out on the highway. Let's see, what else? Oh, when I bought this thing, when they installed the wheels, they had this one on that side and that one on this side. And so what it did is it pitched the wheel over this way. And so the edge of the wheel, as you can imagine, you see that big offset. Well, that was over here because this one was on that side, that one was on this side. And when it did that, the wheel set out past the cutter bar by about 2 or 3 inches. And what it did is, as you were going down your field mowing, this wheel was flattening a couple inches of grass outside the cutter bar. And I didn't realize what was going on. It took a fair amount of time, but we get all our hay up, and it looked like I'd had a tooth missing on a sickle mower. And this grass would spring up like that. I'm like, what in the world? I took pictures of it, and I was at the summer after I bought this thing. I was at the Farm Machinery Show in Louisville, Kentucky, and the Krone guys were out there, and I showed the pictures to the Krone guys, and I said, what do you reckon is going on here? And right away they could see that these things had been reversed, and they were like, get your dealer to fix it. It was still under warranty, and so the dealer fixed it. It took a little prodding to get them to fix it, but they did. They came and got it and brought it back, and they did a nice job with it. So I have no complaints there. It just took a little longer than I thought. But this thing, once we got the wheels corrected, it just lays down a beautiful cut. It doesn't streak in first or second cutting. It's unbelievable, the cut that I get off of this mower. And the conditioning, as I mentioned earlier, is just it's as good as it gets for grass hay, which is what we do. 3 days we can make dry grass hay on this farm. In where we have 3 days of clear sunny weather. And the one thing that I don't like, and I would caution you about, it's probably not an issue in the wider Krones. This thing, if you go flying around a turn on a hillside it can go up on one wheel, and you know, the cutter bar can kind of go in the ground. And the reason I know that is because it happened to me. And it's one of those things, you know, everybody in everybody's life, they have something. Probably they have a bunch of things. You know, the older you get, the more scratches on your brain you have and you remember. But when this thing tipped, it tipped this way, even with the wheel weight over on that side. It tipped this way, and the cutter bar went to the ground. And I saw it when it happened, and I pushed the clutch in on the tractor, and I eased backwards, and it set right back down. But it was an event that's seared in my brain, and I don't want to repeat. So in a lot of my videos, you know, when I get out to the end of the headlands, a lot of times I don't lift this thing all the way up like I've got it now, because I'm going pretty fast, and I just don't want to take a chance. So I kind of lower that center of gravity. And but when these wheels were incorrectly set out like that, that was not a problem. But this is something that other owners of Krone have had, and once you've had an event, then you just kind of know how to deal with it. And I got another friend in Northern Virginia that bought a Krone a few years ago exactly like this. And after his did it, he sent me a text message, and he said, "Have you ever had this happen?" And I'm like, "Yeah." But it's not something that when it tips up like that, it's not like an everyday occurrence. It's got to be the right circumstances, and you just got to be on the right terrain, making the right turn at the right speed, and it'll tip up on you. But I should think the wider Krones would not have that issue at all. And so you got these curtains, these flip up, this center flips up, and there's a prop that holds it up so you can get under there to change those blades. I'll kind of reach up under it from the front side. I'm not going to take everything loose, but I can show you a little bit here. There's one of the hats and the turtles, and there's the blades. And that one actually looks like it's in pretty good shape. I was thinking about changing them. And again, it's a quick change blade, and they're reversible. And just a real heavy cutter bar. It's all welded. You can go on Krone's website and download the literature. Nobody has more information on their equipment than Krone. It's like the brochure that has these mowers in it. It's like 30 or 40 pages full of pictures and information, everything you'd ever want to know. And then even though this thing came with an owner's manual, it also came with a parts manual that's in this box, and it came with a couple of tools. This quick change blade. There's also like a tool that you can see how much wear and tear you got on some of the cutter parts down there where there's time to replace. But you know, before I bought this thing, I downloaded the manuals, the parts list. They included a hard copy of the parts list, but I downloaded the manuals and the parts list. I read all that stuff, and I read the brochures. There's a video on YouTube where Krone shows how they make the cutter bar. I mean, it's just, this is a Cadillac. This Krone is truly a Cadillac mower conditioner in my in my opinion. And so there's the blade, the turtle. They don't set up real high. I know some mower conditioners, it's like this turtle is just really, really tall, and then they have to put things on it to make it throw the grass up, and they have special high lift blades and stuff like that. You don't have anything on this. This cutter bar is actually, it's pretty narrow, and if you didn't want the high shoes, it'll set, this cutter bar will set pretty much right on the ground. So you know, if you're cutting legumes like alfalfa, I think I think because of the deep root that alfalfa has, you know, you can just clip that stuff right down to the dirt, and this mower would do it. It's heavy, you know, on the front end. I think this one, I think I asked the Krone guys, and they told me it weighs something like 1,400 pounds on the front. I don't remember the overall weight, but it is really, really heavy. And obviously, with this tractor, we're going to keep it on level ground. I've had it on the hill with this tractor, but I didn't like it. So we got our big Massey 1105 to you know, to do that chore. And I don't recall how fast, what the miles per hour is. On this one in second cutting, I can mow in fourth gear low range at 540 PTO. I don't recall the ground speed, but on my Massey Ferguson, we go 7 miles an hour. We get out in these fields 7 miles an hour, and the only reason we don't go faster is because the ride gets really bumpy, and because of our lumpy fields and that kind of thing. So you start having trouble staying in the seat. This mower would cut a lot faster than 7 miles an hour, and it just delivers a really nice cut. It's quiet. The gears, they don't scream. It's not like, you know, sometimes you have an old pickup truck or something and you put it in reverse, and there's just so many gears, you know, you hear that whine. You don't hear any of that with this. It's just smooth like a sewing machine. And so you can get this mower conditioner with I think they're urethane rolls, you know, for crimping. I think they probably have steel rollers now. But I don't know for sure, but I think they do. If they don't, they will. A lot of people like those steel rollers. And I wanted the impellers, and it's going to sound really bad, but one of the things I read on an impeller machine is, I'm almost reluctant to talk about it, but they said, you know, one of the benefits of an impeller machine is you can't plug it with a deer. And that's true, because I ran a deer through this thing one time out in this field, and it was not a good thing. But I don't have to worry about plugging this thing. The other thing about the impellers that I like is when you're in second cutting hay, like this would be second cutting hay if I was cutting it in here. Unlike rollers, it doesn't build a wall of air and blow it forward like a fan. Sometimes people complain in like second cutting that the rollers will blow the hay down in front of the cutter bar, so they have trouble getting the cutter bar to you know, pick that stuff up. That doesn't happen with this, or at least that has not been my experience. And then because of that, you don't have to slow your RPMs down. We run this thing at 540 PTO all the time. And when these cylinders retract, these wheels, they just kind of come back like that. And so this is almost at a 90-degree angle. And so instead of running on that part, it's really running like right here. So this thing lowers really close to the ground when it's in a working position. So that's about all I can think of right now. But I thought, you know, while I had this mower out and we've been using it, thought I'd kind of do a little review on it. My feeling is that all of these mower conditioners are really good. I'm not sure you can get a bad one. You know, all of them have their quirks, and some have some features that are better than others. But we're really happy with this Krone, and it does a nice job. You know, we get it on our 1105. I mean, it's just a real nice match for that tractor, and we could go bigger on that tractor. I think the minimum horsepower published for this mower conditioner is like 70 horsepower, and of course I'm running it in second cutting on a 50 PTO horsepower. I think some of that is driven by the weight of the machine. They're looking for a higher horsepower machine in order to keep it safe. So if you do get up on a hill like that, you're not going to get pushed around by this mower. The other thing is you know, obviously we're going faster than a sickle hay bind with this tractor and this mower in second cutting. You know, in first cutting, we're going in grass that's, you know, first cutting hay, 150 square bales to the acre kind of tonnage. We're going 7 miles an hour, and we're getting a clean cut off the cutter bar. So probably if they said this thing could run on 50 PTO, you know, somebody would spend a pile of money on one of these things, and they'd get out and try to run 7 miles an hour with a tractor like that, and it would bog down like a lawnmower, push mower in tall grass. And so kind of 70 is kind of the minimum recommended. My Massey Ferguson dyno's at 118 on the PTO, so it's got plenty of power for this mower conditioner in the tallest of grasses. So anyway, that's kind of the review on the Krone mower conditioner. We bought it new. It's been a great addition on this farm. It's kind of dirty right now. We've been using it, and but I really like this thing. It's an improvement all the way around. So the 280, I guess that's 2.8 meters. So it's just shy of 9 feet by an inch or so. So again, I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If I see them, I'll try to answer them. And Krone, I highly recommend it. We'll talk to you later.